So our Zoom call should say that we are live streaming. I'm just waiting for the confirmation on my YouTube account. And so everybody who is aware, this is Conversations with Mitch Gray. It's good to see everybody. And Mitch, how are you doing today?
Doing pretty well. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing pretty good. And so, of course, this is Dr. Keith McNally, the host of Conversations with Mitch Gray, where we talk about men's mental health. And so, Mitch, we are on a journey. And sometimes that journey feels like we're going in parallel. Sometimes we're going in circles. And so there's often times when I know that I wish things were more even keel, like level. And so I kind of like the straight and narrow, know where I'm going kind of lifestyle, rather
Hmm.
routine. And,
Hmm.
ever since June this year, so 2024, if this is, this is being recorded and you're watching this many, many moons post 2024, starting in June, my life has kind of been disrupted. And so, I'm training for an Appalachian Trail through hike for 2025. Have started some therapy due to PTSD and some depressive symptoms. Probably you had hinted to the fact that I probably should have started that a couple of years back, after we kind of met and, I was struggling with, suicide ideation. But I used the conversations that I had, with the Question Guy podcast and all the other types of podcasts and conversations that I have, including the conversations with you, as kind of a way of healing. But I decided that it was important for me to see a professional, to be quite honest, to kind of
Yeah.
address the things that I always seem to get stuck with. So there's always some things in my life that I tend to just kind of can't get over this barrier. And
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
want I want to be able to do that. And for some reason I'm not getting it, or whatever the reason, I decided that it was, I need I need to cross that line in the sand and say, Keith, you really need to do something, because otherwise there's this thing that we keep on talking about, and we could use it
Yeah.
any kind of metaphor we do, life circles around until you do deal with it and you surpass it. And so I'm tired of it circling around. I want to
Yeah.
deal with it. And so last week was a not so much a struggle week, but it was one of those weeks where it wasn't even keel. It wasn't that steady move forward, and there were some obstacles. And sometimes I'm just kind of, bam, you kind of hitting this wall, and I'm thinking, come
Yeah.
on, I want to
Yeah.
get past this wall. And it was a very anxious week. And but Friday was kind of like the recovery. The universe said, hey, Keith, I know you've been trying. So the universe, God throws me a couple wins, small wins, but still feels good.
Yeah. Yeah. And we all go through those patterns, right? We go through those seasons of life, and we've talked about that quite a bit. But it just seems like there's hills and valleys, and at some point in time, we hope there's kind of the high plains where it's even, and there's not, or we're on top of the mountain for a while or something. And I often, and I've had moments in my life that feel like I'm on top of the mountain for a while, and it feels really good. And, I mentioned quite a bit, and you do too, the spiritual teachings that we study. And no matter what religion you study, for the most part, the spiritual teachings all talk about finding a peace of mind or finding peace in your spirit or in your within your energy, regardless of the circumstance. And we look at people like Nelson Mandela or Martin Luther King Jr. or other people that we could go down the line who, in these crazy circumstances or times of petulance and turbulation, that they were still able to find this peace that is just beyond almost comprehension. And that's what spiritual teachings, whether it's the Jesus teachings or the teachings of Buddha or whoever, the spiritual teachings all have that in common. That it's like somehow we can find the fortitude within us to have this peace that is beyond anything else. And I've had moments in life where it was like your last week and I still had peace. But I've had many more moments in life where I had valleys and darkness and moments like you had maybe last week and I didn't find peace. And so it's almost like we're reaching for something that's attainable, but we'll never stop reaching for it, kind of an idea. And I'm not sure what the answer is. I think it's just practice. And I guess the question I have for you is you had that small win on Friday. Um, is there a way that we can almost strategically plant small wins
That
within
was
our
really my
life?
question for you. It's always because I
Yeah,
always go
well, I
back and I
asked
think
it
about
first.
it.
I asked
I
it
know,
first.
because I think about that. I was wondering if, and I want to say yes, but the true answer is no. And the reason for that is because when, as human beings, when we allow our emotions to be emotions, and sometimes they could be overwhelming or just kind of take over our space. And I like using that phrase. Our emotions take over our space, and sometimes they impact how we think and how we're interacting with our environment, external, internal. And what I was thinking about was the wind came from of all places, it came from my conversation with my therapist. But then I was thinking about the idea that I should have probably reached out sooner rather than wait till,
Mm,
till Friday in my lunch hour and, kind of
yeah,
talk to my
yeah.
therapist. Reach out sooner to the people who I have grown, a real friendship with, over the
Hmm.
past couple of years. And maybe somebody would have said something at the right time, the right place, in the right conversation to give me that win sooner. And so that's kind of why I went to our text chat and said, maybe we should talk about that. Maybe we should talk about, those things that can actually answer that question as a yes, meaning that when you're in a situation where you're in that valley. It doesn't have to be the deep valley. It doesn't have to be the shadow of
Sure.
death, as put in, as
Sure.
scripture puts it. But if
Yeah.
you're just kind of struggling in a space and you know you can't shake it off. You can't shake it off.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
got. I'm thinking, go to somebody you trust, and maybe I should have done that sooner. Go to you. Go to a couple of other names I'm not going to drop here, but um, go to somebody who can at least give you 5-10 minutes of a day,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
kind of just not really looking for an answer, just kind of flush out that energy. And
Hmm.
this is kind of what I'm learning in my, spiritual walk is exchange that bad energy, get it out, talk about it. And for me, that actually does mean talking about it, owning it, experiencing
Hmm.
it, and sharing it, because those
Hmm.
four things kind of seem to release it from the
Yes.
body and the mind. I'm not trying to give you that bad energy or whomever. I
Right.
just need to get it out, and as spiritual teachings go, get it out into the universe and
Yeah.
let the good vibrations, as the Beach Boys say,
Yeah. Yeah.
come back in.
Yeah. My answer to the question is going to be yes and no.
Okay.
Which is that's such a Mitch answer, right? It's like both. And
Well, it's
so the
like it
reason
depends. It's like it
yeah.
depends.
And the reason I say yes and no is I think there are moments that we can't uh intentionally bring forward. I say that, but then I'm backing up. We can. Let me rephrase that. I think there are moments that are meant for us at a certain moment in time that we can't necessarily manipulate, but they're meant to happen at that certain moment in time. So those are the moments that we can't really plan. But I do think there are moments, small wins. Let me give you an example. So a few weeks ago, I ordered a new pair of shoes. Huge win because I found them for 70% off. It's one of my favorite brands, a great shoe. They had a special going. So I ordered them. I took them out of the box to look at them, but I've not worn them yet. So I put them back in the box, and I'm just going to wait for a day that I need to feel a new pair. I need a win. Like it's my gift, it's my pre gift gift to myself. And so I think there
So
might
you
be
didn't even
these
try them on.
no, I tried them on. Like I
Okay,
put
okay,
one of them on just to make sure they fit,
okay.
but they were a final sell anyway, so it didn't matter. But I haven't worn them, like worn them. And so I think there are these little moments. I do that with books quite a bit as well. Like I buy a book that I know I'm going to want to read in the future and I set it aside. So now I've got like 10 or 12 books in a box packed away somewhere that I haven't read yet that's just waiting for me at the right moment in time. So that's why my answer is yes and no. I think there are moments that the universe gifts to us that we can't manipulate, but I think there are also ways that we can put in small wins. That it's like, hey, I can look forward to this. I can
So
look forward to something.
so you mean I need to buy a pair of shoes and put them
You need
away
to
in my
buy a pair of
closet?
shoes, put them away in your closet, wrap them up as a Christmas gift, whatever that looks like. Do that
Uh,
for yourself. I do it with books all the time. I bought a new journal the other day that I'm not going to use for a while. That I'm like, I know at some point I'm going to want a new journal. And so I'm going to buy that for myself today. It's like I'm gifting it to my future self. I had a
mhm.
friend do that the other night. She was like, she sent me a picture of some pizza that she made. I'm like, is that pizza? She goes, yeah. And I said, wow, past self really took care of your current self, didn't it? And she was like, yeah, that's exactly right. I knew my future self would want this. And so it was a really great, it's kind of the same idea, right? It's like I'm gifting a small win to my future self because I know I'm going to need it.
You know, there's a lot of talk on social media platforms about what would you tell your younger self
Yes.
to kind
Yeah.
of, as these motivational things, keep going or whatever it is, don't be afraid. But now you're using your present
What would
self
be, yeah.
to
So there's this
win.
question for future self, right? It's like there's this question that I learned a few months ago. And that question is in 6 months from now, how will you wish you would have responded to whatever?
Mm.
Because you're right. Most of the time, we think about how we would change the past, but this question is framing it as how would we want future self to look back and reflect on current self? That's a real change of mindset, quite honestly. It really is. And so, yeah, it's like how can I prepare future? How can I gift my future self? That's a really great question, quite honestly.
So that kind of taps into a lot of the discussion around, mindfulness, manifestation, and whatnot, because there's this whole thing about, setting up the vision board and,
Mm-hmm.
tapping in and what would it feel like, taste like, look like, and all those other kind of
Yep.
experiential things about what's going to be your future. Um, but nobody ever talked about giving yourself a gift.
I love
So,
it. I love it.
so I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to buy myself a car.
Yeah. You're
buy
going
my,
big, huh?
buy myself a Mercedes, put it on layaway. But it,
You're
but it's
going
true.
big.
But strategically, that sounds about right. And so this whole conversation is about setting up for the small wins, meaning that
Yeah.
there's going to be times in our life where we really do need a pick me up. Maybe that could easily
Mhm.
be a birthday cake when it's not your birthday, or a
Yep.
pair of shoes when you're going to need it, or that
Yep.
journal or that book that you want to read, or even um, I know, movies can be streamed now these days. I still own a VHS recorder downstairs, but
I still go to the movie theater because I love movies. Yeah.
so, and that could easily be, or like a play or something. You buy yourself, that there's a movie coming out,
Yeah.
maybe, 3 or 4 months or a year down the road, you buy your ticket early. And that's going to be, and whatever's going on in your world, in your life at that time, it's still your win for that day. So whether
Yeah.
it's an extra win or it's, you know, you just happen to be going through a small valley at the time and you have that to come back to.
Yeah. And some other small wins that people can use that I call functional wins. And these are practices that I do. I set my clothes out for the next day, the day before. And that seems like a really small thing, but that's a small win for me in the mornings to not have to think about what I'm going to wear. Like I pick it out, I know what I'm doing that next day. That's a small win. Meal prep, like prepping your meals, might be another small win for some people. You don't have to make a decision.
Mm.
It's already done for you. All you have to do is throw it in the microwave, heat it up, whatever that looks like. So there are some other small practical kind of wins that we can do that really set ourselves up for especially those moments that may be really difficult. We're talking about mental health. And so there could be moments that our brain literally isn't functioning the way it should, depending on the severity of disorders or whatever's happening. But there could just be moments that are really a struggle, or maybe you woke up late, or maybe the date is not going great. If you've already set your clothes out and you already have your meals prepped, I mean, you're even on a hard day, you're really set up for not having to make a few decisions that you would otherwise have to make. Those could be really big wins. So I think really we're laughing about gifting our future self, but now that I'm thinking about it, I've actually practiced this for a really long time. Not from that standpoint necessarily, but just because it feels good. It just feels good to know when I wake up in the morning, I don't have to think about what clothes to wear. I don't have to think about most days what food to eat. I may have to make a choice, but it's already prepared. And so, really, even those small practical wins, because some of the things we were talking about cost money, maybe you don't want to spend money on that right now, or maybe you don't have the ability right now, but maybe those small little practical wins. I even know people that they'll back their car into the driveway so they don't have to drive in reverse first thing in the morning. I mean, it sounds kind of funny, but it's like if that's a small win for you, then that's a great idea. I have some next door neighbors that they back their car in because the way our parking lot sits, when the sun rises, it gets into the car. So
Mhm.
they back their car in. So in the mornings, they don't sit on hot seats in this, hot New Mexico sun. And so whatever the win is, I think that's the point is that those small wins really do add up. And there's some practical stuff that you can do day in and day out to give yourself some of those small decisions so that you can gift future self.
Now, I do know some people who do the whole, prep work with the clothes, but I also know
Mm-hmm.
some people who, they wear the same thing day in and day out. So,
Day in and day out. Yeah, that's
so
true.
that's not going to work for them. But also, I do know some
Yeah.
people who, do a whole week's worth of cooking or, on a
Mm-hmm.
Sunday or a weekend, kind of set them up for success. And of course, I'm one
Yeah.
of those people who, oh yeah, I'm back in my car. Now I only
Yeah.
drive it once a week, but still, it's ready to
Hey,
go.
it's ready for you. That's a small win. I like
And
it.
yeah, and so these things really do, they kind of set you up for, and I think one of the keys here is setting yourself up for success that
Mm-hmm.
next day, that next morning, because we never really know
Right.
what that next morning is going to, you know,
Right.
power might go out or something might happen overnight. And then having a way to go, you
Yeah.
know, ease up the day, even having a planned conversation. I know we have our
Yeah.
planned conversations, but other conversations you say, I know people who kind of, regroup every other week or once a month,
Mm-hmm.
things like that.
Yep.
And so things that really kind of you look forward to that are kind of not they're kind of routine, but not necessarily like weekly or daily routine that
Yeah.
really inspire you to kind of keep going. So I
I
think
like
having
it.
these small wins, yeah, I think having these small wins set up for you. So I thank you for answering your question, both yes and no. As
uh,
the monkest of monks, Mitch Gray
the monkest of monks.
brings
Yes.
us some wisdom for today. So, Mitch, thank you so much. I know this is a short conversation, but I think we kind of gave it some value because
Yeah.
setting ourselves up for even those small wins is so really important.
Yeah. Thanks, Keith. Have a good day.
Okay, Mitch, thank you so much. Take care.